was, yeah, and he was a great to work with,
Yeah.
and it was fun putting him in the different makeups and stuff. But Peter has another project that he wants to get off the ground, and we'd still love to bring you out for it. I'd heard through little murmurings that it was going to be the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work on a couple of shows like that, and another one before King Kong was actually Godzilla.
Do you also feel that 30 Days of Night is one of those movies that presented the vampires in a completely different way?
One of the things that I was really surprised about with this film is just how graphic it was.
I found, I don't know if this was deliberate, but I thought that there were sort of nods to Dracula, in the sense that if you look at The Stranger, played by Ben Foster, and his relationship with Marlowe, how that kind of paralleled the relationship with Renfield and Dracula. And I thought maybe, I don't know if it was just sort of me looking too much into it, but I was hoping that was kind of a nod to the traditional vampire movies. But in terms of the design of the characters and the visual effects, where did you draw inspiration from? Was it from the traditional vampires to a degree? Did you look outside of the vampire realm, or was it also from the comic book?
It was a little bit of everything, really. Definitely looking at the comic book and stuff, which is really cool. But also because David was so great at describing of the kind of textures and things that he wanted in the skin and everything. Really helped us a lot to achieve that kind of look. But a lot of it was thinking about the old vampire films, very pale looking and that kind of stuff. But in this case, as I said, they want to do something a bit different and give that really cool sheen to the skin itself. And doing that, and then airbrushing veins all over the skin. So if we wanted the skin to feel very subsurface, so it was almost very thin and translucent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what it was like on set. It certainly looked, I mean, it looked and felt cold, and it just looked like a very difficult place to be in. What was it like actually being on set? Was it difficult? Were there challenges? Can you remember any anecdotes from that time?
Yeah, it was probably the most difficult thing where there were night shoots, which night shoots are always a pain in the ass, because it's like, you become a vampire. When the daylight comes, you got to go to bed. But a lot of it was just a lot of fake snow, and the whole set. And just looking at it, it looked, and it's weird because even though it wasn't cold, you felt cold because of all the snow. And on some of the sets for a lot of the close-up stuff, they used Epsom salt for the snow, which has a really cool icy look to it, because it's when the light hits it, it looks quite sparkly and quite crystally and that kind of stuff. But it was interesting because on the pack, they would have these huge bags of this Epsom salt on there, and it said, "Do not use around contact lenses." And we're going, "What?" So, oh my God, because all the vampires are wearing contact lenses. So it was a tricky one where we had to be careful of not kicking up too much of the dust of the Epsom salt and stuff. Luckily, we didn't have any problems, but it was definitely always something to think about. And blood, lots and lots of blood.
Oh yeah.
I think out of all the movies I've worked on, this show was used the most amount of blood. It was just insane.
Yeah.
And I hate fake blood because it's sticky and just gets everywhere. And but you just had to deal with it. And one of the things that David really wanted too is that he wanted all the vampires to have we called it a blood beard. So basically, it's from them biting and chewing and everything. Their whole face is just covered with this dripping blood and everything. Which really added to the whole look.
Yeah, it was always on their hands too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, like 30 Days of Night, I don't know why you don't often hear it like amongst movie fans. You always hear it getting mentioned as a really great movie and a respected movie, but it's sort of it doesn't get the credit that I feel it's due. But I'd certainly see its influence in a lot of the sort of horror movies that have come after. Have you noticed the same kind of thing? Do you also feel that 30 Days of Night is one of those movies that also kind of opened up doors, presented the vampires in a completely different way to what we had seen before?
One of the things that I was really surprised about with this film is just how graphic it was, and for the ratings, I think it may have even gotten an R rating, because it was so graphic. I can't remember now. But graphic in a sense of, the beheading of a little girl. It's
Yeah.
like, we're reading that in the script. It's like, holy shit, really? And so we had this little girl. What was her name? But she was hysterical because she loved wearing the makeup and the claws and everything. She was always coming around going, ah. I was like, get away. And but we had to come up with a special rig, again, using a great blend of practical makeup and digital stuff. When she gets her head chopped off, we actually made a section of her torso from here to here, just having this much of the neck, that we had cast in silicone. And we had a pre-cut in there so that it could bend back like that and show all the grossness in there. But we also had blood tubes in there and everything. And we had a special rig with an axe that was set up on this rig that would swing and hit it at a perfect angle every time, so we could do take after take. And so we show Eben, taking the swing with the axe and swinging it, and then we cut to the actual rig and hitting that neck, the prosthetic neck, actually the dummy neck. It wasn't near the little girl at all, and that got comped, onto her, in the actual plate shot, which looked just incredible and so gruesome. And another one that was just like, I still think it's probably one of the most gut wrenching beheadings is I can't remember his name now, but the guy who gets bit by a vampire and he starts turning, and so it's Eben that has to kill him, and he basically beheads him. Do you remember that scene?
I do
There,
remember the scene. Was it Billy? Was it
Billy,
Eben's
yes,
friend?
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's Billy, and it just hits him, hits him here. It's like once, and then does it again and again. It's like, oh. And that was done, a lot with just a lot of digital magic, but again with mixed with the practical stuff. And it was just like, wow, shit,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is this is taking this to a whole nother level. And in
Absolutely.
saying that, I think there's a lot of other films now, and especially stuff you see on like on Netflix and things where they really take it to another level of showing pretty gross stuff.
Right. I also think a lot of credit has to be given to Josh Hartnett for taking a role like that, because at the time he was sort of a Hollywood pretty boy, just I don't know, Pearl Harbor or whatever, and here he comes and does this gruesome movie. I think quite a brave choice. I feel.
It was, yeah, and he was a great to work with,
Yeah.
and it was fun putting him in the different makeups and stuff. One of the really cool effects that we did, and this could have been done digitally, but I wanted to do it practically. It's the scene where he realizes that he has to inject himself with the vampire blood in order to become, to get their powers. And so it's a scene where he's got his arm, and what we did is we had cast his arm like this, and we cast it out of silicone and painted it up and looked like the real thing. But inside the arm and here we had little trails and stuff of where the veins would be, and then what would happen is that we had Eben sitting in a chair with his real arm behind his back, and then the fake arm here in front, and it's sitting on the arm of the chair. And so it looks like he's already clinching like this. And then with his other hand, he has a syringe. And then as soon as he sticks it into a spot where we had him hit every time, from behind him, we could pump in the blood, and the blood was this black blood, and we had the veins just slightly underneath the skin here, so you could actually see it travel down the skin. As I said, it probably could have been very easily with CG stuff, but it was nice to do it practically.
I love that effect too. That's how you actually see it going down like that. It was great. Another thing, I don't know if this is sort of a real horror nerd thing that I noticed, but it's weird because Josh Hartnett in 30 Days of Night becomes a vampire at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, and then at the end of Penny Dreadful he becomes a werewolf. So I thought, hey,
Oh yeah, that's right.
you got two icons going on.